Yeah, that would be awesome. Are we ready to start?
Yeah.
Great. I'm extremely excited to be here with you this morning. Laura, who I've worked with in the past, invited me to come this morning, and honestly, there's nothing more important, I think, than the topic we're going to cover this morning. And that is just how to be with young people and be with them in a way that invites them to open up and to talk to us, to use their voice. What a powerful thing. I'm gonna make a bold statement right here at the beginning, and that is that I really believe if you're not already good at what we're going to talk about in the next 40 minutes, this can change your relationships. Not only with the kids, y'all call them mentees or just kids or what?
Explorers.
What?
Explorers.
Explorers. Okay, I'm sorry, I should have known that from the website. Whether it's your relationship and communicating with the explorers, but I'm going to also say what we're going to talk about will really help you with your friends, your family, your partners, your future partner, if you want to have a future partner, whatever. We're going to talk about some things that, again, I'm pulling 30 years of work in this industry into 50 minutes here, and hopefully talking about some of what I've discovered is the most important nuggets about how to relate to kids, to teenagers and kids in general. So let's do this. And I just decided I'm going low tech, I started trying to do PowerPoint and all that. I said, I'm just gonna go low tech. And I've given you basically all my notes because I want you to, we got a short time together this morning and I've thrown a lot into this. So, and also have a outline for an exercise hopefully we can do toward the end. So all I ask is you not just sit there and read my handout, okay? Stay with me if you will. But I did want to do that for you so that if you hear something of interest to you this morning.
I'm sorry, I'm stealing a pen. Don't bring anybody else's pen.
I'm going to actually probably stand up here for a second. I want to make sure I don't grab a thing out of here that's not a whiteboard marker.
Randy, real quick, do you want to give a kind of a background of what your work has been over the last 30 years and your focus, just to give some perspective there?
Absolutely. Sort of like him, I have some, way back in my background, thought I was going to be a minister, so I sort of went toward that track and ended up though getting into social work. And I remember when I got into social work, one of the reasons I did that is because you did an internship, which I thought was really cool. I got to work while I was, and I kind of had this ministry mindset, but I remember telling my professors, you had to do 2 internships over my 4-year degree, and then I did graduate work, same thing, and I remember telling them, okay, I'm really excited about this. I'll work with any population except children. I don't want to work with children. So guess where they put me for my my first internship? I worked with elderly, but then my second one was with children in a very intensive residential treatment facility in Waco where I was in school. And I remember just going there going, holy crud, because these kids were like tearing things up and barricading themselves in rooms. But I had an incredible supervisor and just fell in love with the work. And I've been in it ever since. I've been doing group care and foster care and family preservation type services in several organizations around Texas for about 30 years now. So been in the business. I also ran a landscape company for some years in there, so I have a little bit of business background. But I've also, I've been a therapist, I've been a case manager, I've been an executive director, a president and CEO of nonprofits. So I feel like a very broad view of, I've sat in rooms as a family therapist with families that are screaming at each other and leaving the room and thinking, oh my gosh, how are we going to get through this? And, later having that parent come to me, I'll never forget this one and say, I used to hate my sons, but now I love them, this is awesome. And just going through that battle week after week and thinking, God, is this ever gonna get better? And eventually it did, those kind of things. So, is that enough? Let me quickly ask you, again, I feel kind of like, I gotta go, because I don't have much time here, but are all of you mentors, long-term mentors, or new? Kind of tell me a little bit.
I'm in my second year.
We are in our third and fourth year, yeah.
Third year, wow.
1 year.
1 year?
1 year.
Brand new.
Brand new?
Two brand new.
Brand new. So we got 2 brand new and 1, 2, 3. So a variety. 3 years. That's awesome. I'm so impressed by the work you're doing. Again, I just can't thank you enough for taking time out of your life to get with these kids and to help them. Because as this gentleman said, whether they know it or not, they really need your presence with them. So, all right. So let's start out. I started, I wanted to just look at I pulled from the website. I think this was, this is exactly what's said on the website. Why should I become an Explore Austin mentor? And these were the three things that they put on here, which I thought were very interesting in the context of what we're going to talk about this morning. It says you will have the opportunity to grow as a leader while you serve the community by leading a group of young people through their adolescent lives. I hope y'all's isn't all messed up like mine is. Some kind of going on. I think it's pasted it and it got all messed up. Mentoring, it says, through building relationships with your explorers, you will change their lives while being positively transform yourself. Then third, the adventure. Through the progressive adventure curriculum, you will increase your confidence in outdoor pursuits like camping, biking, rock climbing, and canoeing. What do you notice about those three statements? What jumps out at you about those? Anything in particular?
Change.
Change, yes. Change in who?
Both.
Both, yeah. I mean, I was sort of like, wow, this is awesome, because if you look at it, there's more in here about changing you than it is about changing the kids. What do you think about that? Is that true, or you think they made a mistake on it? Whoever wrote this, what were they thinking, or do you think this is true?
I didn't think it was true until I started working with kids.
And what happened? What? I mean, not literally what happened, but so you figured out that there were things maybe about yourself that came up?
What?
You don't have to.
I wasn't ready to be put on the spot. But
Yeah.
this past summer, this is my last year was my second summer wilderness trip. At the end of the trip, I was saying, I never would have thought that they would have reached out to me and touched me in my life. I thought it was me being a role model for them and being there for them and their hardships in their life. And it was just a shock to me last summer.
Yes.
And, we have a really good group and sweet and amazing kids. And
Yep.
I feel like they are changing me.
Absolutely. That's good. You've been impacted. That's awesome. No doubt about it. I mean, if I could say anything about my time working with children, is that if there's anything in your life that's unresolved or raw, it will come up in your work with kids. It will. I mean, and you'll either stuff it back down and ignore it, or you'll let it come up, and like he said, you'll fiercely go into your own transformation. But it will happen. And that's part of when we think about debriefing with kids. I want to say to you, and again, I was thinking back as I was preparing for this week, when I was in my undergraduate work in social work, they drove me nuts with these paper after paper on myself, write about your family, write about, I was like, I'm sick of writing about me, that's stupid. I remember just being frustrated by that. But now here I am, 30-something years later going, I get it. I get why they were doing that. Because if you're a helping individual, it doesn't matter if you're a social worker or a pastor or just a person on a job as an accountant, if you care about other people and you want to help them learn and grow, you have got to be, first of all, in touch with yourself. And I'll even say that to say, if you want to be a good partner, friend, family member, you've got to be in touch with yourself. And so the first thing that I would say about doing a debrief with somebody, I'm using this term, it's getting overused these days, but we also use this in a method that I use with kids, with training parents right now, but mindfulness. What do you think I mean by mindfulness? What does that mean?
Awareness.
Self-awareness, yes. And mindfulness means a lot of things. I mean, it's also mindful about the kids. But first of all, what I'm saying is, you've got to be mindful about what you're bringing to this moment. And I say moment because it's different every day, right? One day you're in a great mood, you're on top of the world, and you're bringing a different part of you to the moment. And if a kid's having a tough time, you may be more present with them, more responsive to them. But the next day, you may be having a sorry day. And you all of a sudden are having a really hard time coping with what this kid's going through, this explorer's going through. Explorer, is that right? So yeah, you've got to be mindful. You've got to be aware in that moment about what am I bringing to this, and kind of so as you see on your sheet, a couple of questions that I think are important for us to ask ourselves. Like if we're going into a situation where we have an opportunity, there may be an opportunity to debrief with an explorer, a group of explorers, if you have a chance, I think that day, that hour, think about, ask yourself some of these questions. What do I bring to the situation? How has my past, this is pretty heavy stuff, so I understand, but how has my past impacted how I experience this situation? So you may get aware when you do this that whatever interaction you just had with an explorer, a group of explorers, you're getting triggered. You know what I mean by triggered? You don't know what I mean by that, right? You're either feeling angry or maybe it can even be super excited, like you're more than weird excited, like whoa, and all of a sudden it's like, why am I so psyched by this? So just being aware of what's going on. What am I feeling in this moment? Am I tired or hungry or upset? Am I feeling anxious? Am I feeling pressure? And this is a big question. Am I feeling pressure to get this youth to talk or to have a great time? One of the things I noticed about these 3 things on the website is there's a lot of pressure in this, right? It says you, through building relationship with explorers, you will change their lives. Whoa, that's a lot of pressure. You're through the progressive, let's see, where's the other one? You will have the opportunity to grow as a leader, serve the community by leading young people through their adolescence. So again, leading them through their adolescence life, helping change their lives. That's a lot of pressure. And one of the things I deal with in foster care and group care and places when I'm training our people to work directly to live with kids is one of the things we have to really work with them on is finding that balance of not putting so much pressure on themselves. And we put some of it on them, like particularly around school and stuff. They got to do well. They're failing classes. You got to help them get where they're not failing. So there's a lot of pressure there. And so when you go into a debrief, as we're calling it for this workshop, you can really feel a pressure, like I gotta get this kid to talk. I gotta get him to have some insight, right? And so I'm gonna really say, relax off of that. You can't force anybody to do anything, right? It just doesn't work. And I found over the years, the more you push an explorer, the more they're gonna potentially do this. It just doesn't work. You've gotta learn to relax. And the first thing to do, again, is to be mindful about where you are. Okay, so any questions about that? Are you aware of that? Yes.
Yeah, so do you have tips on how to do that? Because I noticed all these things kind of combine, so it's one Saturday a month, so there's all this pressure that
Yes.
you're spending just this one Saturday, so you go into it with that, and then you have this activity that you may or may not have done that you don't have a lot of knowledge about, so there's kind of pressure around that. And then there's things like cold weather, and I noticed last month by the end of the day, I had kind of gotten really frustrated, and so then I felt all this guilt about how I was leading that day.
Yes.
And I wasn't mindful of my actions during the activity. It wasn't until after, and then that guilt kind of set in, I only have this one chance a month to do this, and I wasn't the best leader I could be.
Absolutely.
And so I think there was little check-ins that I almost need to have, but I don't know how to have them.
Yeah, I wish I had a perfect answer to that, because I think it's different for each one of us, but you just got to figure that out for yourself. Maybe have another person that you're close to in the group who can help you kind of have those moments where y'all check in once an hour, however often, how you doing, let's take a minute. Or if they see you getting agitated, to help you with that. But in terms of yourself, again, it's that mindfulness. It's getting aware of when I'm getting tense, or when I'm feeling. I know for me, I'm hypoglycemic. So if I don't attend to my nutrition and my hydration, which again we've learned. I wish I had 5 hours with you, because there's so much we've now learned about the development of the brain for young people, but also about just the physiology of stress and how important good nutrition is, good hydration. So like you said, I would guess that day you were having such a hard time, if you had attended to your own nutrition even, did you eat every 2 hours?
Yeah, I think for us it was the cold weather. It's our socks were soaking wet from the beginning, so everybody was just miserable because of that, and it just bled into everything else we did.
That's right. So sometimes, I think, to me, the best thing when I've worked with kids in the past, one of the best things I think to do is, I used to just call it a huddle up. Just say, hey guys, time out. Let's stop for just a second. Even if you're just stopping on a trail, literally just standing there and say, guys, hey, I'm really aware that I'm freezing my butt off. You know, are y'all feeling that way? And I realize all of a sudden I'm really agitated. I'm not being a very good person to you, and I'm sorry for that. Just stop right then and just own it.
Yeah.
I think that's a lot of it. Just own it and have grace for yourself. It's the same with the kids. When they're having a bad moment, we don't want to turn to them and attack them. We want to turn to them and go, hey, take a deep breath. Time out, it's okay. You know, help them calm. That's what we're here for. One of the things, in fact, I skipped over it, which I want to do in my notes. I put for the goal under mindfulness to be a calm, attentive presence. If you don't hear me say anything else this morning, that's the thing. Be a calm, attentive presence. And you can't be that if you're not okay in yourself. So yeah, I think the best thing is when you do become aware of it, just stop. And again, sometimes stop's only a couple of seconds as you're moving, but sometimes it really is. Stop everything and just go, okay, you know, embrace it, verbalize it, because what you're doing in that as well, to me, the most important thing, and we're going to talk a lot about this in a minute, the most important thing we need to do for these kids, besides being a calm, inquisitive presence or attentive presence, is to help them find their voice. Help them find their voice. And by that I mean, help them be able to verbalize what's going on for them. And just like that, you're literally mentoring, you're exemplifying what it looks like, sounds like, feels like for someone to be mindful. When you stop and go, guys, I'm freezing right now, my feet are so cold, I can't even get my brain to work. And so I know I'm not being good. That's what's the word? I can't think of the word. Role modeling. You're role modeling for them in that moment. So again, none of that's wasted. You know, part of you might think, oh, I don't want to admit that. You know, but I think, and again, one of the things I've seen about kids is they are such good monitors of genuineness. In other words, if you're faking it, they know. If you're hating being there, they know it. So it's what I've seen when I stop and I'm honest with kids, and my own sons, this is true. I got 14-year-old twin boys. When I just stop and go, guys, I'm being a real jerk right now, I just see them relax. And it's the same with other kids I've worked with. When I'm honest with them, they go, thank you. You know, it's sort of, they don't always say that. You can just see them kind of go, okay, I can deal with this person. You know, even if I'm saying I'm being a real jerk and I'm about to rip your head off, or want to rip your head off right now. But I don't want to do that. That's the key, obviously. You got to genuinely not want to rip their heads off. Does that answer your question a little bit? I know I wish I had a magic answer.
Yeah, really helpful.
I do, because like just getting there sometimes is difficult for me, just because I feel it's not actual pressure. I just feel pressure getting home. So sometimes I'm always thinking about home while I'm out there, and that's not fair to the kids or the program. I'm a 5-month-old and so my wife doesn't get out a lot, and so she knows how important this is for me. And but I always do kind of check-ins. Like when I pull into the warehouse, I sit in my car for 60 seconds and be like, I'm here. Like
that's good.
The kids deserve my attention. And then even throughout the day, when I find myself kind of wandering off and worrying about that, I'm doing like these kids need me. I'm checking in with myself and seeing how am I showing up for them. Just constant check-ins if I find myself kind of getting anxious about, or not making much progress here or whatever, because then even our leadership skill or discussion last week, one of the kids was like, Jared, you're so motivating. Like that was one of my leadership. I was like, wow, okay. I was like, cool. So those little check-ins with myself are helping.
Yeah.
But one of the things about mindfulness, if you've read much about it, it's a real buzz thing right now, and lots of books and articles about it. But one of the main things about mindfulness is basically just relaxing in your mind. In other words, not criticizing yourself. So Jared, I think that's awesome, that practice you're doing. The other piece that I didn't hear you say, but I think you're doing it is also don't criticize yourself that you're wanting to be home with your wife and your child, which I didn't hear you saying that. I'm just saying, when you have that moment to relax, just be okay with, I'm really feeling compelled to be at home. Acknowledge that, just go, that's okay. That's why I'm a loving dad, And so that's that part, kind of what he was saying, I think his name was Stephen, was saying about, when he was younger, trying to figure out his 3 things and all that. Just being able to not discard that part of you, but to be able to really lift that up and go, My wanting to be home with my wife and 5-month-old is part of what makes me so good for these kids right now. It's that same part of me is being expressed. So yeah, in that moment of awareness, you just relax. Even if in your moment of awareness you say, I'd rather be somewhere else. My feet are freezing, I hate this. Just be able to kind of, for an instant, go, I really hate where I am at this moment, but I know in my heart I want to be present with these kids, which is what I heard you doing so beautifully, Jared. So you get at the root of, yeah, I'm really miserable, but what I really want is to be present with these kids. Then you have a chance to get there. Doesn't mean you'll be perfect at it, but you have a better chance then to move into a space where you can be present. Because if you don't do that, though, if Jared didn't do that little exercise in that check-in, he probably wouldn't be near the encourager that you are with these kids, with the explorers. So great job on that. The next thing, again, once we're mindful, part of being mindful and part of working with youth, I couldn't pass on saying something about this. I wanted to get right to the debriefing and the actual techniques of that. But the other thing is boundaries. I've worked so much with kids and with people who work with kids, and I cannot say enough about the importance of you being clear about your boundaries. And what do I mean by boundary? What do you think of when you think of boundary with these explorers? Have you ever had a moment where you were aware of a boundary issue? Let me ask it that way. Like you were either getting too involved with somebody or not enough? Are you aware of that? So, for the sake of time, I'm going to press on. What I think of when I think of a boundary is like a fence line. It's basically it's a kind of where you end and I begin. Basically, being very clear about where you are in relationship to this explorer, this group of explorers. So, a couple of lines that I've got on your sheet there. To protect yourself from the youth and to maximize the youth's learning, you must be clear about boundaries. A boundary identifies where one person ends and the other begins. Boundaries help us determine who is responsible for what. That's huge. When you're thinking about debriefing with an explorer, or you're about to go out on an exercise or an event or whatever with an explorer, I think it's really important to get clear about who owns what part of this experience. Okay? And that goes back to that pressure we were talking about a minute ago. It is not your job as a mentor, unless they've told you something different, but I would say to you, it is not your job as a mentor to be a therapist or to own or somehow have to solve problems for these explorers. That is not your job. So when you think about a boundary, you got to get really clear about this. What is your job then? If it's not to be a therapist, we're talking about debriefing here. If it's not to be a therapist or to actually solve the problem for this, then what is your job? What's the boundary? Where do you stop and the explorer begin?
You help them identify what's going on in their lives by giving them a voice.
Absolutely. Yes, you give them voice. You help them. I like that term, the way you said that. Help them identify. So what did I say at the beginning? The goal is to be calm, a calm, attentive presence, right? The other part I'm going to say is, to be inquisitive, which we're going to talk a lot about that in a minute. Yeah, so the boundary, the reason I wanted to bring up boundaries is, again, this is not, and it's also not about you giving advice. Sometimes it is. If they asked you for advice, I think it's great to give advice. But don't go into a debrief all psyched. Man, I noticed that this kid did this and that, and I've got to figure it out. I know what happened. I know what happened out there. They had a breakthrough, or they got stuck, and I'm going to tell them how. I'm going to coach them through it, I can do that sometimes. Like with my sons in particular, I want to become the drill sergeant, man. Just line up and do this, and I'll tell you your marching orders. Because I'm so smart, and I am smart, and I am intuitive and all that. And I do have thoughts about what's good for them. I have a lot of thoughts about that. But I need to hold those. I need to let them discover. To me, that's what you're here for as a mentor. It's not to boss them or advise them ahead of time. It's to, yes, help them identify. Help them figure out how they either did or are going to live in a moment. What was going on. What I'm going to spend a lot of time in a minute on is just helping you learn how to do that, how to just ask. The power of being a mentor is I think, most powerful techniques you can learn is to ask good, powerful questions. That's it. It's not how to give great advice. It's how to listen at times, which I know Stephen's covering in his workshop. But then when that moment is right, being able to formulate a question that helps them go a little deeper into their experience. That to me is your role as a mentor. And then once that's there, then they may turn to you and say, what would you do in this? And then you have an opportunity to share some of your advice or your thoughts. But first and foremost, you gotta be calm and relaxed and trustworthy so that they can be comfortable enough to say, you know what, I was scared to death out there. You know? You don't want to say, hey, you looked really scared. You know, and they're like, oh, what? No one's scared, man. That's what happens sometimes when we go too quick to that. You know, did you raise your hand?
Yeah, but I think you're gonna get to it.
Okay,
so.
okay. If I don't, though, come back to your question. All right. So again, boundaries. I think y'all get what I'm saying on that, right? Any questions or thoughts about that? So we're talking. You come into this with a mindful attitude. Again, I so appreciate you honestly talking about how you were that day, because that's so important. And it sounds like y'all are going to have a lot of those moments. I'm sure you have, where you're either cold or you're not rested enough, or you're hungry or thirsty. Just remember, you're feeling that way, and it's important for you to get mindful, but also it helps you then realize the kids are feeling that way too. The explorers are feeling that way. And they don't know it. They're probably not going to be able to verbalize it to you, but you can help them find a voice to do that in some of your debriefings. So what was going on for you when you were out there and the river water was all over you and you were going like that? What was that like for you? You know, and help them put words to that, their own words to it, not your words to it, to say what they were experiencing in that moment. Okay. I want just to side, now this is where I made my bold statement at the beginning about I am shocked and saddened, honestly, and disappointed many times, even at my age, with friends that I meet at church or out in work situations, how often that I'll have coffee with someone, an adult, another guy or a woman, how often they don't know how to have a conversation. They're just like they never ask me a single thing about me. You ever been in a conversation, and maybe you're like that, I hope not, but that's why I said earlier, this will change your life. If you are a person who doesn't know how to host, I call it host a conversation, this will open up the world for you. If you can learn to just be inquisitive and be I'm trying to teach my 14-year-old sons this, which is not easy. One of them is really good at this already. The other's so shy, he just crumbles when he's around people, you know, especially girls. I mean, literally, the other day there was a girl sitting there, he was like this in the chair, you know. And he's a really cool kid. He's not like a super nerdy kid or anything. He's really, but I'm like, oh man. So I literally practice. We'll be driving. I'll say, okay, Liam, you know, what might you add? I'll be the girl and you be the That doesn't work very well. We'll be driving a little bit. But, so, I don't know, I'm going off on a tangent. My point in that is that I think this is one of the most important, in fact, I'm trying to think about a book I could write about this, especially for men, because men are the worst. They're the worst at this. But just learning how to host a conversation. Whether it's with an explorer or a friend over coffee, whatever it is, but just being able to carry a conversation in a way that invites the other person to share. You know, I mean, it's amazing how few people will just do that. Just ask enough questions to keep the conversation flowing and to show that I'm really interested in you, Tony. I want to know about you. I'm not just going to ask you, how's it going? You know, the one who's shy always says, Dad, these guys walk up to me in school and they go, what up? What up? And he's like, what am I supposed to answer to that? You know, and that's all they say, what up? And then they walk off if he doesn't answer. So he's like, I don't think they like me. They always just want. So again, it's just that sort of, sometimes the question you ask can be a wall, right? So learning to ask good questions, I think, is super important. Okay, so let's get into actually talking about debriefing, you know, the actual conversation that's going on. The first thing, again, I've already said this, but I want to make the point again. I think it's in your notes. And that is, move at their pace, not yours. Okay, now that, I want to say that with a little bit of a caveat in that sometimes we do have to prod kids along with our questions. So we are impacting the movement or the pace. But I guess what I mean by that is if a kid's just sitting there like this and they're not responding to anything, don't just keep, frantically pushing them. So you want to just be able to go into the situation. Again, you've got to get comfortable with your own anxiety about needing to make them talk, You just cannot do that with these kids. And if Laura or someone else from Explore Austin is pushing you to do that, tell them to call me. Say, Randy said to call him. If you're pushing, if they're saying, come on, you got to make them talk. Come on. I know they're playing. I always draw a picture of, when I'm teaching parenting, which I do a lot. I always draw a picture, a very quick picture here, but of the parent and the little kid here. And I say, if your vision is right here and that's it, it's going to be very hard. What you got to do is you got to raise your eyes up and you got to have a vision of your kid when they're out here with their luggage and they're leaving for the world. That's where you got to look. You got to have the long vision. You cannot, if you're just staring right here, every time your child makes a mistake, you're going to go, dadgummit, and you're going to just hammer them. Whereas if you've got this view, you're going to say, this moment is one tiny step in a long journey. So even if the moment is horrible, even if that explorer is just like, I don't want to talk, it's okay. Just take a deep breath. Again, be mindful about, oh gosh, I hate when this happens, but I'm going to sit here with them. I'm going to stay quiet. I'm not going to pressure them. And just make yourself be that calm presence. That's attentive though. You're still watching them. You're still with them, but you're calm. You sit down, okay? Hey, I'll just sit here with you. And you just sit down. And just be with them. So we're going to talk about talking in a minute, but that's the first thing. Just be with them. And I'm telling you, some of the kids you're working with, or a lot of the kids you're working with, probably have either no adult or very few adults who will just sit with them. And I mean literally and figuratively, who will just be with them and really care about them, really be attentive to them. Just being attentive alone, I think can change an explorer's life, literally. I mean, you just being that adult, every time they see you, you're like, I'm so glad to see you. And sometimes that's it. That's it. It may be an explorer you're not the direct one with, but every time you see him, you high five them and you say, man, you got such a great smile, Tony. You've got such a great way of greeting people. I love seeing you. That alone can be life-changing for them, just that attentive moment. Okay, I get so fired up about one point. Okay. So again, that's talking about, I use this term connect, but again, I think that's just a word for you to hook on to. But just think about connecting with kids. I do a parenting approach that's there's three things. We want to connect, empower, and correct kids. But the most important of those is connecting. The more we can do to connect with the child all throughout the time you're with them, then the higher the chances are that if you need to correct them or if you're just debriefing with them, it'll go much better. The more connecting you do along the way. So some of the ways that we connect, some of the ways that I would really encourage, and these are so simple and yet they're hard, and that is eye contact, voice tone, and what I call behavior matching. So you get what I mean by eye contact, right? But that's not always easy. But just being able to make a relaxed, comfortable eye contact with kids. And sometimes they don't want to look at us, and that's okay too. But the eye contact that we make, or just the way our eyes, we call them soft eyes. And I have to really work on this, because one of my biggest challenges as a parent is having a hard face. I'm naturally a drill sergeant. I want to boss my sons around, and in a way, it's unfortunate that my sons are so compliant that I can get away with bossing them around. It's a real problem in a way, because I can kind of say, go do that, and they'll go do it. And I say it's a problem because they end up just doing this all the time and not really thinking about what they want, kind of thing. So I have to really work on my facial expression and my voice tone and my eyes to make sure my eyes are soft, to make sure my voice tone matches what I'm trying to communicate. So if you're saying, come on, how did you enjoy this event today? Whoa. That's not, I'm sure none of you do that. And then matching again is if the child looks super tired, they're sitting slumped in their chair, you're not gonna stand up over them like this and say, how'd it go today, right? Matching would be that you're gonna come up to them, up close to them, and you're gonna kind of match how they are. I don't mean you have to do like this, but you're gonna sort of get down to their level, you're gonna relax your body in a similar way, and you're just gonna be sort of, we found a lot about how the brain works and how communication works, and much of it happens in this matching. If you watch a parent and their baby, there's matching that goes on. And the brain of the child is being developed just by that matching process. So that happens with you and your explorer as well. So just simple things like that, of how you pace, how you look, how your voice tone is, those kind of things. The next thing that, again, we've already said, giving voice. So again, I'm throwing out these terms, but these are so huge. This is that life-changing thing. The mindfulness, the boundaries, connecting, and then giving voice. Again, I just can't say enough about that. So as a mentor and as someone who cares about this explorer and now is trying to debrief with them, your number one goal is to give them voice. And you don't give them voice. Help them find their voice. It's probably a better way to say it. And some of the ways you can do that, again, if things are tough, if you're in kind of a situation where the explorer is not really being cooperative or whatever, some of the ways to help give them voice is offer choices. Again, that's a parenting technique that's so powerful. And I often say to parents, if you don't do anything else, just learn to give choices. So when your child's needing to make a decision about something, give them two choices, either one of which you're okay with. But like in this case, I give the example. You want to talk about this now or later? We can debrief this now or in 20 minutes. You're still saying, I want to debrief it with you, right? But you're giving them a choice. Then the youth, just by simply saying 20 minutes, they're using their voice, right? I mean, you can tell that they're maybe not wanting to talk about it right now. So you give them that choice. And many times you'll give that choice and they'll say, no, let's do it now. I'm always surprised by that. Like, wow, okay, they didn't look like they wanted to do it now. But once I gave them voice, well, if I just come up and said, hey, we're going to talk about this now, they would have gotten this. No. But by giving choice, all of a sudden they're like, okay, they're respecting my voice now. I have an opportunity to have a little power in this relationship, so I'm going to take that. Kids will take that opportunity. So offering choices is extremely. Besides the debriefing, I'll just tell you, it's also really powerful for anything you're doing. I mean, you want that paddle or that paddle? Do you want to go in the front of the canoe or the back of the canoe? Whatever choices you can offer that you're okay with, give them those choices. The more choices you offer them, the more comfortable they'll feel with you. I guarantee it. Because they feel like they respect me. They're letting me have some power in this relationship, which is my third point, which is sharing power. Anytime we can share a little bit of power with explorers, you're going to get bang for the buck later out of that. I guarantee it. Same with offering compromises. Hey, do you need a compromise right now? Like if we're needing to press and do something, like we can limit our time to 5 minutes and then go back to the group. In other words, you're just compromising. Maybe you're going to have a 20-minute debrief, and they're just like, I don't want to do it. Can we compromise? Can we just sit here for 5 minutes and talk? And then go, we'll take a walk and then we'll meet back up in 20, whatever. That's a compromise. And again, you can say, well, I don't want to give up that much, but you're either going to get this or you're going to get 5 minutes, So those are just some, I know I'm flying through this, but those simple techniques can really, over time, really open up the door for explorers to feel comfortable talking to you and feel like they really can use their voice in a powerful way with you. And I think you'll see more and more of that. The other thing, again, is just learning. To me, there's nothing more powerful in any relationship you're in than a well-timed, well-constructed question. That's a game changer in any relationship. And I'll say that with my wife, with my children, with coworkers. Instead of me speaking first and giving my opinion, to ask an open-ended question. I mean, there's books, Crucial Conversations, written in the business world about how to have conversations in critical moments in a business setting A lot of what they talk about is how to ask questions, how to ask the other persons for their voice, for their opinion. That's so important to learn to do. So the rest of what I'm going to show you is just examples of how to construct questions in powerful ways. If you'll use this, if you'll study this and just try, I'm going to ask you at the end to just pick one of these. Pick one of them and try them with some of the kids, and I think you'll find that it'll really help open up some doors. The simplest one for me to remember is just the who, what, when, where, how. I don't need to write it up here, it's on your sheet. It's, again, just a simple set of questions for me to remember, but who, what, when, where, how. What might that sound like? What's a what question that y'all might use in a debrief?
What is happening in your head?
Absolutely, yeah. Or what happened right before you turned over in the canoe, or what was that like for you when so-and-so got in front of you on the trail? Whatever it is, just, again, that what question. Again, you notice I don't have why on there. Why do I not have why on there?
It can seem accusatory.
Yeah,
Or like a challenging spot.
Yes, yes. Most of the time, though, if you listen to adults, why comes out the most. And again, why can be used in some ways, but why typically has sort of an implied judgment in it, right? Why did you do that? Why were you in the front? Why? And it sort of automatically puts the person on defensive, right? So practicing these other questions, just thinking about it. Again, I found when I was a new therapist even, I learned this, and again, there were times when I just felt so stuck. I don't know what the heck to do next with this session. It's the same if you're having coffee with a friend. I don't know what else to talk about. Think about who, what, where, when, how. And you can just figure out. So, what coffee do you like? Just anything. And you can go anywhere with that question. So when you're debriefing and you're sort of lost with a kid, just think about this. When did you decide you wanted to be an explorer? There's just so many ways you can go with these questions, and we'll talk more about that in a moment. The next one I want to tell you about, and again, we're almost out of time already, so I knew this was going to happen. I'm not going to get through a lot of these questions. I gave you a ton of questions, and this comes out of a body of literature it's called solution-focused therapy, and it came out of the therapy world, but these questions are fantastic for any use, but I think I'm going to pick a couple of them to go over in the next minute or two. But the first one that I have on here, I put on there on purpose, is the scaling question. I think this question is extremely helpful when you're debriefing with an explorer or a group of explorers. And basically all a scaling question is just using a scale of 1 to 10 or 1 to 5, it doesn't matter, 1 to 100, whatever. But it's a way to put sort of a measurement on on what their voice needs to say. In other words, if you just ask a kid, how do you feel, they may not have a clue. They may not have a clue. But if you can ask them in a scaling question, on a scale of 1 to 10, I think I put an example on here. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being that you're completely confident you can make the climb, and 1 being you cannot possibly make it, how would you rate yourself right now? So see?
And if they say 1, what would you recommend saying?
Yes. Well, if you can see on my example, and I'm only pointing you to the example because I want you to see how you can use this sheet if you keep it. I would literally say, what needs to happen for you to move from a 1 to a 2? Or a 1 to a 1.5. Now see, there's nothing magical about the number, but it is powerful because it gets them to say, well, because you're not saying, what does it take for you to move from a 1 to a 10? Well, that wouldn't make sense, right? But that's kind of how we act a lot of times with kids. We act like we need you at a 10 right now. That's how my drill sergeant part of me that's the worst part, is that what I'm really wanting kids to do is be here when they're here, right? They really are. They're here. They're new to this. They've never been canoeing. They've never been hiking like this. Or maybe they have, but So I got to realize that I'm just asking, I'm not asking to get to a 10, which is here, and this is a 1. This kid's like, I'm scared to death, right? I just want to move right here, just that little bit, that's all. So I say, what would it take for you to move from it? They may not be able to even articulate that, but it still gives them a chance to use their voice. They may say, well, I don't care, this sucks, right? So then honestly, you gotta be careful about this. You don't wanna sound like you're cutting them down, but I might say, so on a scale of 1 to 10, it sucks a 10, or it sucks a 1, or it sucks a 10, however you do the measurement, what would it take for you to move from a 1 to a 2? Where it sucked a little bit less. Use their words. That's another technique, actually, is use their words. If they say this sucks, or this, again, you don't want to say, if they say the F word, you don't necessarily want to use that word. You might. But yeah, join up with them. And that's that matching, that's verbal matching, that you're matching using their words then to construct a scaling question. But I love scaling, but with youth in particular, and they seem to really like it. They almost even young kids. I've used this with little bitty kids, and I'll just use smiley faces. Which of these faces, you can even use it with kids that are almost not even hardly verbal. But it's a great way, because then later, the next time you're together, they'll often come back and say, hey, I'm a 5 today. I'm a 5. And then you've got a language you can use with them going forward. Anytime then you're about to go canoeing or about to do a hike, you can say, hey, where are you today? Are you still a 5? And they might say, oh no, I'm a 3 today. See, that just automatically gets you to where you want to be with them. Like, wow, okay. So what's causing you to be a 3 today? What's different today than when you were a 5? See the power of that? Again, another question. What's different? There's that what question. Today than yesterday. Same is true if they come today and say, I'm an 8 today. Whoa! Yeah, I always try to, really be like, whoa. What happened? What's different today than yesterday? Now see, what I'm doing is giving them voice. I could say, I know you're an 8 today. I saw you out on the river, man. You were paddling like a champ. See, that's one thing I can do. That's okay to give a compliment. But before I go there, I want to give them a chance to analyze and to give me their own voice about what was different. See the difference in that? Mm-hmm. Always reaching for their voice. Always reaching to help them identify, as Laura said, what their experience is. I don't know for sure. I can see what I think happened, but I may be wrong. So even if you do describe what you've seen, I think it's okay sometimes to do that, but then always follow it up with, am I right? Or how would you describe it? That's how I would describe what happened. How would you describe it? So again, you're asking them to tell you that. Okay. I got time for about one more question. Let's see. Well, anyway, you can go through these questions. Like on number 6 on the list, reframing. That's just a way to think about reframing a situation. Like the example I give, I'm wondering if your pushy interaction with John was an example of how you're a natural leader and really want to make sure that the team is working together. So anything that happens, you can try to help reframe that to the explorer. Same with normalizing down on number 10. Again, these all have terms that sort of describe them, and they're simple concepts. But if you'll go through these, I think you'll see there's a lot of questions in here that you could use. But normalizing is just simply, if something's going really hard, just to say, hey, it's completely normal. I think the example I used here was you're repelling and the kid's just frozen. I can't do this. Instead of saying, which I want to do, put the dadgum strap on and jump off the cliff, That drill sergeant in me wants to come out, come on, tough it up. It's that, rub some dirt on it. Garbage that I've probably heard a million times from coaches. Instead, just go, it's really normal. It's really normal to feel frozen, to be like, oh my goodness. So why don't you just take a deep breath, take a minute before you take the first step off. So you're not letting them off the hook, but you're normalizing that. Yeah, that I get it. I get what you're feeling right now. I've felt that before, or I've seen other kids do that, whatever. Okay. I'm sorry I didn't blow through the rest of the material. I purposefully gave you more than I knew I could cover because I wanted you to be able to look back at these questions. Any questions from you just as we wrap it up?
Yes. I have a question. My girls are in 8th grade right now,
yes.
And we have some challenges with attitude and snarkiness.
Yes.
So we're trying to ask these questions, and we're just getting attitude or snark back.
Right.
Do you recommend
Yeah.
keep trying other questions on, like, other different approaches on the list, or do you have any
Yes.
kind of recommendations specifically to teenage girls?
Right. I don't know how much you have, that y'all are trained on just, like if somebody's being really snarky, like to the point of disrupting the group, it's kind of, that moves over into the corrective area, which would be a whole nother hour for me with you.
Okay.
But,
Could you come
but
back?
again, things like giving choices, giving choices. We can talk right now or later. I mean, if they're being too snarky and you're trying to convert, I wouldn't keep pressing on that. So you either go to correcting if that's part of what y'all do, which in my case, it'd be like, feel free to stay with the group as long as you're not using the F word. In other words, the implication is if you use that again, you're going to be separated from the group, that kind of thing. That's more of a correcting technique. So just letting them know. I might pull that one aside and say, hey, are you okay today? What do you need? That's another, I didn't have that on here, but just best question in the world. Instead, again, as a drill sergeant, I want to tell them what they need, all right, you need to get yourself together. But just simply pulling a youth to the side, an explorer to the side, and looking them in the face genuinely. The first thing I would do, though, with the kind of activities you do, first thing I would check is, have you had enough to drink? Do you need some food? And if nothing else, always carry an extra bar and an extra water in your package. You can pull out and go, hey, let's step aside for a minute. Have you had enough to drink here? Why don't you take a drink? Let them take a big swig of water, and then just say, and they may not take it, but then just say, hey, what's going on for you right now? What do you need right now? It looks like you don't want to talk. You're kind of being snarky with me. That's really making it hard for me to talk to you in the group. What do you need right now? And then just look at them. Be quiet. And again, she may say, you can't control what they're going to respond to, but I think that opens the possibility of them to say, I don't want to be here right now, or whatever. Then again, you can go back into on a scale of 1 to 10, or tell me what happened that caused you to get there, your who, what, where, you can start going into those questions and asking them, as long as they'll tolerate you asking those questions. But as soon as they start just doing this, and I don't want to talk anymore, then personally, I back off. And that's when I just be with them. I mean, if you still got to be with them, then I just say, hey, again, maybe give a choice. You want to talk now or later? They'll say, I don't want to talk now. Okay, that's fine. I'll just be with you. I verbalize that, though, and I'll say, I'm really interested in I really want to hear what your experience was about this. So I hope later we can talk, but for now, we'll just hang out. But then I'm going to stay close to them. I mean, if this is a kid I'm worried about, I'm going to bodily stay close. I'm going to say, hey, part of my job is keeping you safe, so I'm going to hang out close to you. You'll notice I'll be around, but you can come to me when you're ready to talk. And then I just kind of watch them and stay close by. I may just be standing like this looking over here, but I'm watching him out of the corner of my eye. I'm making sure that, and he gets that. Tony's going to get that, or she's going to get that you're there. You're a calm, attentive presence. Calm, attentive presence. So to be calm, you got to be mindful, right? If you're not calm in your own head, it's hard to be calm with the youth. You got to have good boundaries. It's not your job to solve it for her. It's not your job to make her unsnarky in the next 5 minutes. But it is your job to be your mirror to her. To say, you know what, when you can in a comfortable moment, you know what, I want to have a relationship with you. But when you act like that, when every time I ask you a question, you say that back to me, and I be specific, that makes it really hard to relate to you. I'm going to keep trying, but I want you to know when other people in your life, when you treat them that way, it's going to be hard for them to hang with you. And some of them are going to say, forget it, and they're going to walk away from you. So if you want friends, if you want support, I hope you'll work on that. See, that's one of those moments when it is a moment when things are a little calmer, you can say something like that and let them know this is what it's like to be around you. It's not fun sometimes. And I think they can handle that. Thank you I think we're out of time.
Thank you so much.